When evaluating a new vendor for your channel practice, you are trying to answer one straightforward question. Is there actually money in this for me? If you are looking at network access control, or NAC, you have probably heard a familiar industry narrative. You are told that NAC is a declining category, being replaced by Zero Trust and ZTNA solutions. There is a degree of truth to that claim. Traditional, legacy NAC architectures built on 802.1x supplicants are difficult to deploy. In organizations moving toward cloud-first environments, they are expensive to maintain and hard to justify. Partners carrying those legacy products feel that friction directly. It drags out project timelines, shrinks initial profit margins, and turns annual customer renewals into a difficult defense of the vendor's pricing. But while those specific legacy products are struggling, the role of Layer 2 network access control has become more critical. Writing off NAC as a dead category means overlooking a growing requirement in modern network architecture. Look at how enterprise networks have shifted over the last several years. The number of unmanaged devices, everything from medical sensors to contractor laptops, has grown to the point that they often outnumber managed endpoints. Zero Trust tools like ZTNA and SASE are effective at controlling who accesses which applications, but they operate at the application layer, depending entirely on user identity and device agents. This comparison matrix shows the exact blind spot created by that architecture. At the application layer, Zero Trust tools are blind to unmanaged devices that lack user identities, installed agents, or Active Directory enrollments. If a customer installs an uncredentialed medical device or an industrial sensor, it completely bypasses those ZTNA security controls. The identity tool cannot see it. To answer the prior question, what device is this and should it be on the network at all, the decision is made at Layer 2. That is the enforcement gap, and NAC is where it is enforced. Every organization investing heavily in Zero Trust will eventually discover this blind spot on their network. For a channel partner, that gap is your entry point. The primary reason partners lose money on NAC projects is rarely the initial pricing. The margin killer is deployment overrun and scope creep. Traditional NAC platforms like ISE or ClearPass depend on 802.1 and SNMP integration. To make them work, you have to lean heavily on the customer's existing infrastructure. Enforcement under that model requires complex switch-level configuration changes. It requires you to build out radius infrastructure and deploy supplicants across every new site. This waterfall chart shows how that dynamic affects your economics. A project you scoped for 6 weeks bleeds into 4 months of troubleshooting. Your security engineers are stuck coordinating with the client's network team, and your modeled margin of 40% shrinks down to 15% before you close the project. Here is the alternative. Genians uses a passive Layer 2 network sensor placed at the switch level. As you can see on the right, the margin curve remains predictable. Because it relies on sensors rather than deep infrastructure hooks, it fingerprints and discovers every connected device from day one. You do not need to rewrite the customer's 802.1x configuration or touch their switch settings. By removing those network infrastructure dependencies, you bound the project scope. The margin you modeled on day one is the margin you keep at closing. The second major threat to a profitable NAC practice is renewal friction, caused by expectation gaps in pricing. Legacy licensing models are dense. They rely on multiple feature tiers, complex hardware sizing, and separate modules that can trigger surprise costs during an audit. When those surprise costs land, they impact the partner relationship. You either have to absorb the cost difference yourself to save the account, or spend your time defending the vendor to an angry client. Genians operates on a single pricing dimension, active device count. There are no threshold tiers to manage and no hidden module activations. For managed security service providers, this maps to your business model. You bill your customers by the device. Your software costs track by that exact same unit, making capacity planning linear. When renewals become a known, predictable quantity, you can focus on scaling your service rather than defending your pricing. The most durable demand comes from regulatory obligation. Customers in regulated industries renew because they have to, not just because they remember to. This graphic highlights the frameworks driving this market. On the left is the European NIS2 framework. It mandates network security controls across 18 critical sectors, carrying fines of up to 10 million euros for non-compliance. It applies to any company providing services into EU markets. On the right is CMMC, which makes cybersecurity certification a condition of contract eligibility across the U.S. Department of Defense supply chain. Contractors without the required certification level are ineligible for award. These frameworks carry significant consequences. Failing to meet NIS2 standards can cost 2% of annual turnover, while falling short of CMMC requirements results in immediate loss of business. There is no opt-out. This shifts the nature of the engagement. You are no longer convincing a customer they have a problem. You are helping them meet a defined requirement before a hard deadline. The compliance calendar becomes your sales cycle. Faster initial deployments do not eliminate the need for a channel partner. They change your role. This diagram maps out where the long-term value is created. The center is the initial sensor deployment. But the surrounding nodes, designing custom segmentation policies, building isolation workflows, and handling compliance reporting, are the high-margin services you provide. Once you establish visibility, you earn recurring revenue by connecting NAC data into the client's Active Directory, CM, and ticketing systems. Landing the initial deal opens up platform expansion. You can extend the client into ZTNA for user access and EDR for endpoint detection. A global software vendor cannot substitute for a partner who has spent years building trust in a specific market. The revenue from integration and compliance support belongs to the local partner who understands the client's environment. To see how this model holds up in practice, look at the 2025 Genians Partner of the Year recipients. They operate across very different geographic markets and verticals. In North America, Computer Integration Technologies serves financial institutions and local governments, where compliance audit cycles create predictable expansion opportunities. In Central America, Lynx Shield Technologies expanded from government into telecommunications, addressing unauthorized device access on shared network infrastructure. In South America, Deloitte leads cloud-managed NAC migrations across mining, chemicals, and financial services, turning compliance into a recurring operational need. Across EMEA, RAS Infotech secured new customers in financial services and healthcare in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain, leveraging local support from Genians Dubai office. And in APAC, Blue Zebra expanded from Thailand's public sector into defense agencies and media organizations, building repeatable deployment models on local expertise. Despite operating in different regulatory environments, every one of these partners shares a single characteristic. They own the customer relationship. Genians provides the technological platform, but the local knowledge and trust that retains the account and drives predictable revenue is the partner's true competitive advantage. These success stories show that profitability follows the partner's ability to match a bounded scope architecture to local compliance realities, regardless of geography. This model adapts to your specific business objectives, whether you are trying to fix margin erosion on existing deployments, evaluating a replacement for a legacy vendor, or building a managed security service from the ground up. If what you've heard today matches a gap you're seeing in your market, whether you're looking for a more predictable NAC practice, evaluating alternatives to your current vendor, or building NAC into a managed service for the first time, the next step is a conversation. Reach out to the Genians team through genians.com/partners or contact the regional office closest to your market. The conversation starts there.